So why don't we start with you telling me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Bangalore, right here, and this was actually near Alsur Lake.
And after that, I went to LKG, and I had my friends Nitin and Govind, they were very, very close to me. I nearly even won the women's school race, so that I graduated into UKG. Yeah, and after that, I went into school and college, and Virat Kohli was a very good player, and I grew up watching Sachin play, and it was very inspirational. And so many good ballers that he faced, it's not a joke. It's not even a comparison to today. They lost Shane Warne and Bhumi and Wasim Akram, and yeah. And after that, I went into school and college, and Virat Kohli was a very good player, and I grew up watching Sachin play, and it was very inspirational.
Hi, everyone. I've got with me today Vinay, who's the Director of Marketing here at Talent 500. And we're going to talk about a really interesting and relevant topic, which is how do you, in an interview, talk about yourself without putting someone to sleep or boring them or, just saying too little about yourself. So let's start with what do you say in an interview versus what should be in your resume?
The resume itself is like the extended highlights, of that match, of the match that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Of the game that you're talking about. And when you're introducing yourself in the interview, that's the trimmed version of those highlights.
Right.
A resume is something that your interviewer has probably already read or at least skimmed through. So all the details are there, the numbers are there. You don't have to read everything out.
Right.
That's again going to be very, very too much detail.
Boring as well.
And if they want to double click on anything, it's already there in front of them, or you can always talk more about it, right?
So what I like to do is, the resume obviously highlights the achievements. You've got your numbers, you've got your roles, your designations, your promotions, right? I like to sort of reference that with a story or saying, just like a little one-line summary, like I got in here and then I did this and then I found that I really liked that. And so I moved on to that. It's just a 2-3 line summary.
It's all about storytelling.
Storytelling, yeah. I think the more engaging you can be in an interview, the more of an impression you make. Let's talk about this double clicking thing. Why is it important to let them sort of come to you versus you directly expanding on a story?
Yeah. So the thing is that, when it comes to interviews, you really have to be at the same wavelength of A, the company, B, the interviewer, and see what this job is all about, right? If you are at very different wavelengths, you have this very, very standard approach in answering this question, and you really don't, you're agnostic, or you just don't know about what this job is looking for, or what the company is looking for you, from you, you really just tend to go all over the place, right? And again, when you do that, you're setting yourself up for the interviewer to go to sleep, right? So identify, these overlaps between your story and their story, and talk about that.
It's also about tailoring the stories that you tell or the incidents that you share based on what the interviewer is responding to. So you can pick up on body language cues. Maybe if they say, oh, okay, that's interesting, how did you do that? Or what gave you the idea? Then I think it's interesting to sort of go into a little more detail.
Very, very valid point. The cues that these interviewers are giving you. I mean, we live in a world which is full of distractions, right? I mean, that's the reality. It's not ideal. It's not the way it's supposed to be. If you are an interviewer, you should be giving your attention because you're taking an important decision of hiring somebody important. So you better be there. But in reality, there is this, there is Slack open on your phone, and your teammates are pinging you, and there's a lot going on, right? So you need to understand that there is a limited time, right? And you pick up on the cues, right? Whether it's an online interview or an offline interview, you're looking at how their eyes light up if you're talking about something. Go in, right? If they're really interested and they're talking back to you, it's just like having any conversation, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're talking back and if they're asking some questions, okay, that they're interested about that. If they're starting to zone out, especially if their cameras are on, and which should be, they will give you those cues, and you really need to pick up on that. Right? So
this is an opportunity for you to let a little bit of your personality show, right? Because I think we talk about vibes, and these decisions are, after all, very personal.
Right.
So if you find that the interviewer is interested in something, if you can pick up on that and sort of, if they respond better to you being a little humorous or sharing a little more data-driven insight, then maybe you double down on that. Just basically read that body language.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you, like you said in the beginning, right? It's a storytelling, and you need to package it well in a way that you're memorable, you're authentic. You don't come across as somebody who's just putting on a facade, because people can see right through it. You just go in wanting to make a very interesting conversation. And that's how it is. And another analogy is, it's like sending a message on WhatsApp. You don't want to write a massive essay.
Oh my God,
We've seen some of those, like, I've maybe written some of those, but you need to find the balance. At the same time, you don't want to write a message which comes across as
like
arrogant.
Okay, thanks.
With that, thumbs up. It has to find that balance of, giving enough information, being memorable, and having that conversation.
So we've talked about practice, right? Obviously that's important, but when you're early in your career, you don't have a lot of opportunity to practice. And then maybe what's on your resume is just your education and maybe a couple of certificates or an internship or whatever. So how do you get that practice? Like, is it important to some people say practice in front of a mirror or practice with a friend? Do you think that would help? Do you think that actually going through your whole story and maybe timing it or recording yourself to see how you come across, do you think that would help?
Yeah, to an extent, yes. You really need to be prepared. You need some preparation, but also, different things work for different people. It's not a one size fits all. So, there are people who do better if they practice in front of the mirror, which is, most experts say that that's going to help you. So try that. Try timing your responses. See, because when you introduce yourself, it's very, the likeliness of the interviewer interjecting you is low. So you do have the stage set for yourself. So if you time yourself and you know what are the points to make, you are bound to do well. So, I think definitely prepare. Don't go unprepared, but at the same time, don't overdo it to a level that you're
like reading from a script.
Exactly, you're choreographed and that kind of, because if something, there's something called over choreographing, right? If you in these things you want to be a little bit spontaneous, because if you do it so so choreographed, the problem is that if something goes off in the middle, you're completely off track, right? And that's going to hit your confidence. So just be yourself, just talk about your story. You know your story better than anyone else, and keep it succinct, right? Keep it short.
And like you said, authenticity is so important, right? So I think people, like you said, can pick up on the fact that you've practiced and rehearsed rather than, this just being an answer to a question. Let's talk about time as well, right? So we're talking about not keeping it too short, but not keeping it too long. So in your experience, what do you think is sort of the ideal time that you should spend talking about yourself?
That's an important thing to, factor in before you step into the interview. But however, I don't really want to put a time, specific time on it. I will go on to talk about a few recommendations, but I don't want it to be a hard and fast rule, because it does depend, if it's a, online setting, it differs. If that person maybe who's interviewing you said, hey, can you give me a minute? I'll be back, so time is, I don't want it to be very rigid. At the same time, you need to have some sense, right, of, how much time has gone by since you started introducing yourself. So probably, anything around a 3 to 4 minute mark is fine as per me. It may differ, again, industry to industry, experience to experience. But anything above 5, I don't know, right? Like maybe you're stepping into that territory where you're going to zone that person out. Right, so keep it shorter than that. There are biases that exist, and if you talk to a lot of interviewers, if you ask them at what point in the interview did you take your decision, it's quite early on. You should not judge early, right? I mean,
that's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say. But the reality is that in some decisions are made very, very early on, and as the person who's giving the interview, you need to not keep that in mind because you're going to start fumbling and be anxious, but you should, be aware of the time, right? So in those 3 minutes, 4 or whatever minutes you want to take, few minutes, make sure that you're memorable. Talk about, experiences which will add value and impact to the company that you're interviewing for, or to that process, or to that team.
I think, some of the best interview experiences I've had have been where the conversation just flows.
Right.
And then you stop checking the time. It just becomes like a back and
absolutely,
forth.
Yeah. Also, coming back to, how much time, taken to introduce yourself. I think it's also about respecting the time of, the person who's interviewing you. And one of the, I think it's a bonus step, is to also know what time of the day it is and what day of the week it is, because
that's interesting.
if you're going for an interview on a Monday,
Friday evening,
we'll get there, but I'm saying on a Monday at 12 o'clock in the noon, all the best. In fact, I would say, don't set it up during those times. But yeah, coming back to Friday, what is it? Friday
evening.
Friday
I just want to wrap up for the day.
Oh yeah, that's so. That's the
I don't
thing,
want to take an interview.
Exactly, right. But you're in a good mood, right? So
that's true.
Yeah. So there are these trade-offs, and maybe on Thursdays probably it's good. You have their attention. They're not in the weekend mode yet, but maybe they're a bit more relaxed than they are on Mondays and Tuesdays. So I'm saying these are things that
Very
you don't have
subtle.
to overthink. Don't overthink it, but at the same time, do keep it in the back of your mind, right? And on Monday they are stretched for time. They're hoping that this 45-minute slot, or 1 hour or half an hour, whatever it is done quickly with, and they find what they're looking for. I think also the onus, I mean, we've been talking about the interviewee, the person who's giving the interview, but there is also the onus on the interviewer, because like I said, it is a human interaction, it's a conversation. So I think even any interviewers look, and people who give interviews are at some point also going to take interviews. So you need to be empathetic of the fact that this person is there to have a conversation with you, give your attention. We understandable if there are some things distracting you, but then keep it to a minimum, right? And give your attention to this person who's trying to tell you their story, right? I think it's only fair.
Absolutely.
But I think keeping these things in mind should, how much time have we talked now?
Maybe we should wrap it up before the audience falls asleep.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
But great talking to you about this.
Great conversation. I'm sure I've picked up some tips along the way, and I hope our audience has too.